From the Windows, Doors, and More Studios, your one-stop shop for all your kitchen and bath needs. The Pat Miller Program. Whoa, 92.3 FM and 1190 AM. Depend on it.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the noon hour, just after, here on this Saturday. Very glad that you guys are with us. And what a week this was. When you look at the fact that a week ago today, we had just been off the air about 4 hours when everything that happened with the president and there at the mess that they had in Butler, Pennsylvania, who could have even dreamt what that would be, and everything that it became, because everything that came and the president's incredible fortuitous action of turning his head a certain way, and they've determined now that it was as he was turning his head to look at that graph that he had that he was going to share with the crowd, that as he's turning his head, that bullet's already in the air. Had he not turned his head, it wouldn't have nicked his ear. It would have blown right into his temple, and there would be no Donald Trump today. You could hear a little bit in his presentation on Thursday night, the closing night of the Republican National Convention. Some of the same things said by President Trump. Here's what we need to achieve. Here's what we want to do. This is where we need to put our energy. Same things that we've always heard. However, this time with a different tone. There was a very different tone. I don't know how long that will last. I don't know if it'll last to the next debate. I don't know if it'll last to the president's next rally, and there will be rallies. But it was pretty much kind of incredible to hear how the president and others brought what had happened last Saturday into their comments in the Republican National Convention this week. I'm going to take a quick break now, short segment. I've got Kayla Blakesley coming up and some things that we want to talk with her about relative to everything here in Fort Wayne. That comes up straight ahead right here on WOWO 92.3 FM, 1190 AM.
This is the Pat Miller Program on WOWO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM. Depend on it.
And welcome back. And as promised, here she is, fresh off her hot week of radio. Kayla, you do the Fort Wayne's Morning News. Have you ever had so much stuff crammed into 1 week of news, local and national, ever?
No. I remember when Donald Trump went through all of the impeachment proceedings, and every day it was like impeachment. And I thought that was really overwhelming and hard to keep up with. That was a breeze. That was a walk in the park compared to this last full week now of a news cycle that we have had. The
shots rang out against him there in Butler, Pennsylvania. Have you been to Butler?
I have not been to Butler, but I know exactly where Butler's at.
Yep. Almost straight south from where you grew up, right?
Yep.
But Donald Trump, the shots rang out against him about 4 hours after this program went off the air last Saturday. And I'm like, timing. Come on, Miller. Timing.
Yeah.
But how are you? You doing all right?
I'm doing well. Finally caught up on some sleep because that was just it, too. You know, you come off of this assassination attempt and then you've got the RNC going down in Milwaukee. And, you know, you don't want to miss a moment of that. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the primetime addresses, a lot of them aren't until 8, 9, 10 p.m. And then, as you know, Donald Trump's address, it was 93 minutes long. So I'm like, it's midnight. I got to get up in 2 hours here, DT. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, but and what a terrific. Now this is just me. Okay, am I opinionated? Am I biased? Yep.
At least we admit it.
As far as the convention, I've never seen one so well put together and to where it harmoniously moved within itself as I have this one.
Yeah, it was really well executed, and I couldn't help but think about that myself, especially during Trump's primetime address, for example. They had set up the uniform that the firefighter wore whom we lost.
Was that something?
Yeah, and so I'm like, man, they must have had to scramble to really get a lot of these things together. Yeah. That was not something, obviously, that was planned.
And that was his uniform.
It was his uniform that the Butler Fire Department's my understanding allowed them to have and use.
Right. And his family.
And then for Trump to scrap the initial speech that he had, pre-assassination attempt, and then write this 93-minute speech. I mean, a lot of things happened within just a matter of a few days leading up to that primetime address.
Yep, you're exactly right. Coming up after the bottom of the hour here, Kayla, we're going to be talking to Philip Wegman from Real Clear Politics, who was on the floor of the entire convention, and I'm really looking to get his insight on that. We're going to talk later also to Jim Banks and get his take on it. Let me do this. Let me get my Pat Miller lasso and throw it around you, and I'm yanking you back to Fort Wayne. Let's get back into local. I heard something that popped up on your show this week, and I heard you talk about Sophia, who is the lady, the officer, the captain that you have been doing
my weekend show. Yeah.
Unholstered. For how long have you been doing that?
We were going on 3 years. It had been 3 years in August that we
Okay.
had been doing Unholstered. And obviously, I say had been doing. We had to say farewell to that program.
Yeah, walk me through that. What happened?
Yeah, Pat, I'm so glad you brought this up because it's kind of a convoluted story, and my show structure is very different than yours. I get to share and tell stories in a matter, 4 minutes or less.
Right.
Sometimes I take liberties with that clock a little bit.
I've caught that on occasion.
Yeah, right, on occasion. But my show, Unholstered, ending with Captain Sophia Rosales-Catina, my co-host, has a lot to do with the silent demotion of Fort Wayne PD Police Deputy Chief Mitch McKinney.
Okay. So now you say silently demoted.
Yeah.
No fanfare.
We weren't
no
going
reason
to
giving,
be
nothing?
informed about his demotion, nor were we going to be informed about Sophia being stripped of her title when it comes to the community relations team that the Fort Wayne Police Department has. She served as the director of that. She's also had her position moved. She has served as the captain of the southeast quadrant of Fort Wayne.
Right, and she's been there forever.
Yeah,
like,
forever. Her career within the Fort Wayne Police Department is going on 30 years. It will be 30 years in August as well. And she's served primarily in that southeast quadrant. And before we kind of get into the real reason of why these moves / demotions happened, I would like to take a moment, Pat, to jog the memories of your listeners.
Okay.
And perhaps even jog your memory.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah, right. And because I feel that this is important. We all remember the caucus that went down to elect our current mayor,
Yes.
Sharon Tucker,
Right.
right? We all remember that. And shortly thereafter, all these concerns started popping up about her, particularly concerns with our Fort Wayne Fire Department and our Fort Wayne Police Department. Was she going to move some of these leadership positions around? Should firefighters and police officers be concerned, right? I heard that. I feel like from hundreds of listeners, and truth be told, it was a concern that I had too. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to call her up and bring her on the show. And it was June 20th, to be exact, that I had her on the program.
My birthday.
Oh, yes. Okay, there you go. Happy belated, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And talked to her and asked her about rearranging specifically the leadership positions within the Fort Wayne Police Department. And if you don't remember that because you were out celebrating your birthday, Pat, allow me to share that audio with you and her response to that.
Okay.
Well, speaking of learning the staff, that is one of the concerns that my listeners have, Sharon. I'm just going to be really blunt with you this morning. Particularly, it has to do with the Fort Wayne Police Department and whether or not you plan on changing out our police chief. So, like I said, I'm just going to be blunt with you this morning. Any plans to do that or to change any of the leadership roles that are already in position?
No. I had heard that concern before being sworn in. And my opinion is that no leader worth their value comes in and makes any drastic changes. It's always best to walk in and just reassure staff who, of course, after 3 weeks of uncertainty, have some uneasiness about what's going to happen and move forward. But in my opinion, public safety, both police and fire, are areas that we need to make sure are steady and moving forward successfully. So there's no plans to make any changes in either of those areas.
Okay, so that's June 20th?
Mm-hmm. No plans.
Well, there were 4 no's. I counted 4 no's because, two negatives are a positive. So no, and then no, that's positive. Okay, so in under 30 days, they did make moves that she said nowhere on her table is she going to make that move.
They did. That's absolutely what she did do. She made some moves within leadership roles. So our Deputy Chief of Police, Mitch McKinney, he was demoted down to his merit rank, of sergeant. And the Fort Wayne Police Department wasn't going to tell anybody about this. And I don't know how long you know Mitch McKinney, but he's been serving on the force for almost 24 years now.
Yep, good guy.
An incredibly wonderful human. I know Mitch really well. I've had the privilege of getting to know him over the last several years. And not only was the Fort Wayne Police Department better off because they had him, but our community as a whole, that southeast quadrant of Fort Wayne as a whole, all of it was better and more successful because of him and also because of Sophia.
So now he's been demoted.
He has been demoted.
And she has been removed from her position?
So this is also important to when you have these leadership roles, just like you do with any fire or what have you, other city jobs like that, they're appointed positions. So technically you can be stripped of your role for no reason whatsoever. And Sophia and Mitch both really weren't given reasons why. They were moved. I use the word moved because, yes, Mitch was demoted to his merit rank of sergeant. Sophia was stripped of her title as Director of Community Relations, and she's being moved quadrants, okay? As I mentioned, she's overseen the Southeast Quadrant of Fort Wayne as a captain for almost 30 years. They're moving her to the Northeast Quadrant of Fort Wayne. And I'm just going to say it. It's like the whitest quadrant that we have in Fort Wayne. And
that's where I live.
Yeah. The reason I point that out is Sophia is a minority.
Yep.
She's a minority female. She's Hispanic. And that's, truth be told, she'd tell you probably one of the reasons she's had so much success in the Southeast Quadrant. So it truly was devastating for Sophia. That Southeast Quadrant is where, again, she spent almost her entire career.
Right.
She knows the people. She knows the neighborhood. They love her. She loves them. She can count on them. It's amazing that these people, it's hard to get witnesses to come forward to certain crimes and what have you, but she has built, and Mitch for that matter too, such great community relationships. And now they're gone.
Well, and see, some people will say, well, yeah, Southeast Quadrant, that's the blacks. It's also the Hispanics.
Correct.
It's a huge minority. And I have never heard, now this is just me, you and I haven't talked about this. I have not heard one quibble about her from anybody out of the Southeast Quadrant.
Which is saying a lot because people don't know this. She used to be the public information officer for the Fort Wayne Police Department. So if you were going to throw daggers at anybody, it would have been her.
Yeah.
Her being the spokesperson for the entire Fort Wayne Police Department. So I think that is a true testament to her career. Take a listen, though, Pat, because she's being stripped of her title with the Community Relations Department. She can no longer do the show Unholstered with me. That's why Unholstered has to end, because she can no longer speak on behalf of the Fort Wayne Police Department. But I'm telling you, this was crushing news to her. It was crushing news to me. Take a listen to her telling me on what ended up being our last episode of Unholstered.
After this weekend, I will be moved from my position as Southeast Captain and Community Relations Captain. I will be moving over to the Northeast Quadrant of Fort Wayne just as a captain. So I will no longer be involved in community relations or engagement or anything like that for anything other than the Northeast side of town.
You can hear, I'm not hearing anger out of her. I'm actually hearing a deep hurt below the surface. It's like, why are you doing this to me? And why are you doing this to my quadrant?
Yeah, and I think Sophia should be deeply hurt because once you kind of get down to the real why this is happening, Sophia should be greatly hurt. I mean, really, quite frankly, as should Mitch. And Mitch even said it as much to me, and I have the audio of this if you want to hear it, but that he is being moved because of political purposes and that he really wishes that politicking would be removed from policing.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with him more on that statement. But really what this all stems back to, Pat, and I'm probably going to blow your mind with this, and I have gotten this confirmed now from about 10 different sources. They're all incredibly trustworthy sources. One of them had the guts to come on the air and share with this openly with listeners as well. And it's City Leader Tom Didier. As you know, he served as a councilman.
Sure.
He ran for mayor of Fort Wayne. So just kind of a little bit of a behind the scenes because you got to tell some of the story to get to the real reason why. But Mitch McKinney, again, our former deputy chief now.
Right.
Now Sergeant McKinney. He served last year as the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Indiana Wayne Lodge 14, which is a completely different entity, by the way, from the Fort Wayne Police Department.
Right.
I think that's important to throw that out there. And per usual, the FOP hosted their candidate forum. Basically, this is a meet and greet for all of the candidates seeking the FOP endorsement, that they all come together and do that, right? However, all of the candidates seeking this endorsement and wanting to come to this candidate forum, they have to RSVP to attend, okay? It's that simple. That's the policy. That's the rules. It's been like that forever.
When you and I get press invites, sometimes it's the same thing. You can't come if you don't RSVP.
Correct.
We have to have your RSVP by such and such a date.
And you have to have equipment checked. And if you don't follow these rules and these procedures aren't followed, you don't get to attend.
Right.
It's pretty black and white. And like I said, it's been like this. So story short, back in the fall, when Mayor Henry and his team showed up for this forum, they had not RSVP'd. So unfortunately, Mitch, being the kind guy that he is, actually walked them out of the building and basically said, I'm so sorry, we can't have you here because you didn't RSVP. Mitch said he tried to be like, but hey, you're the incumbent. Everyone knows who you are. It's really no big deal. Do you have any stickers or brochures you want us to hand out while we were here? Let's just say that conversation didn't go well. And Mitch left from that conversation knowing that his job would probably be on the line within the Fort Wayne Police Department. But I think this is important to point out, and I'll let Tom Didier tell this part of the story. It wasn't like a Republican-Democrat thing, because it wasn't just Mayor Henry turned away.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, the candidates forum that we had, back before the election in November, the rules were pretty much set. You had to contact through email and make sure that you were, set up to come into the forum. It specifically said on the form that if you did not email your confirmation, that you would not be allowed in. Mayor Henry was not the only one that was not allowed in. Dr. Myers and one other person that ran. So this wasn't like a Republican-Democrat thing that they were doing. Two other candidates that were running for city council seats did not get to come in either.
Okay, now, and just to clarify this, because you said something right before you played this clip, this is not a Fort Wayne Police Department organization.
Nope.
It's separate. So, because some people say, well, Mayor Henry is over the police department, and that's true. This was not a Fort Wayne Police Department event.
It's a completely separate thing.
Okay.
So there, again, all of the sources that I spoke with, because Mitch followed the rules of the Fraternal Order of Police and adhered to the policies and did not allow these individuals in, because, again, it wasn't just Mayor Henry's campaign,
right.
As you just heard from Tom say that. He is being demoted from his role as deputy chief. And I know the next question is going to be like, well, who is doing that? I can't really confirm or deny this. Like I said, I've had about 10 sources tell me this, that it's our deputy mayor.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Same deputy mayor that was there underneath Tom Henry.
That is correct.
And so, okay. So,
and quite frankly, Mitch would have been demoted sooner. Mitch was ready to hand in his resignation because he knew his job was on the line. And this is infuriating to me, because this is like saying something at a family picnic, right? Like something completely different than your job. You're at a family picnic, you say something that offends somebody, and you're getting fired from your job for it.
Yeah.
That's what this is. That's
Yeah.
all this is to me. Someone holding a grudge and didn't like the way you handled your business at a separate thing, and you're losing your job for it.
This is not something that is exclusive to Fort Wayne, but I hate it, whether it's national, state, county, local. I hate it when we start getting very petty about what we do and why we do it. This, from what I'm getting here, it feels like there's a whole lot of pettiness going on here.
There's a ton of pettiness going on here. And like I said, Mitch would have been demoted sooner, but the police chief at the time, Steve Reed, he was not going to allow that. Take a listen.
And I'm not trying to start some hornet's nest here, but this is wrong. I mean, Mitch is a good police officer. He has done amazing things for the southeast quadrant of Fort Wayne. I mean, I can't begin to tell you all the programs and things that this man has done.
Obviously, he was demoted moving forward. The reason that they kept Mitch for as long as they did is there were some prominent deaths, obviously, within our community. And so Mitch oversees the pipe and drum. Mitch oversees a lot of that, or I should say did oversee a lot of that, so they needed him. But fast forward, here we are. I'll start the hornet's nest. Tom Didier saying he doesn't want to, but I will, and I have no problem saying that. Sharon Tucker is just simply being maneuvered from what I'm hearing from about 10 different people by some of the other gentlemen there within the mayor's office.
So like the deputy mayor, for example, is making bends in the road, and she's just following down the road.
I mean, why else, for example, and this brings me to my point to Sophia, and I know we're running out of time, Pat, but Sophia was and is Mitch's right-hand gal. And so Sophia simply just got caught in the crosshairs. They know her loyalties are with Mitch and that she's worked well with Mitch. And Sophia was actually being trained to take over the deputy chief role when Mitch decided to move on or retire or what have you.
So if they were going to move him, she should have moved up.
She would have been shot up. She would have been promoted. But obviously, Mayor Tucker didn't do that. Instead, stripped her of her community relations role and moved her quadrant. Why do that? Only because she has loyalties with Mitch. And I think this is infuriating because Sharon Tucker, who's all about women power, diversity amongst our political leaders, amongst appointment positions, women, that's been her main drumbeat for as long as I can remember. She had the opportunity to promote the first Hispanic female to the deputy chief role within the Fort Wayne Police Department, and she didn't do it.
Yeah, which is
because of a grudge being held.
If you're going to be political about everything, that's insane.
It's insane. It is infuriating. If you can't tell, I'm still livid about this.
I can't. That's why I'm staying on this side of the room. So you can't hit me with anything you might throw.
Well, 3 years down the road, when we have another mayoral election going on, I'm going to make sure people don't forget about this happening.
This has got to come back up.
Yes,
absolutely.
It will.
Thanks for hanging around.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it very much. Hey, after the bottom of the hour here, we're going to go to some other places. We're going to go back up to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee. Our good friend who is there at Real Clear Politics, Philip Wegman, he has been on the floor all week long and was there until Thursday, drove home on Friday, and I want to catch up with him now and find out exactly what was it like. It seemed pretty exciting on the television. What was it like on the floor? And don't worry, we'll have Kayla back in a week or two, and she'll give us the next step in what's going on with the police department. We'll figure something out. Coming up straight ahead, right here on WOWO, 92.3 FM, 1190 AM. And as promised, we now go to just back from the Republican National Convention, Philip Wegman. Philip, good afternoon to you, sir. Are you tired?
Still a bit tired, Pat. It was a wild, not just Republican National Convention, but a wild last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you go back to just a week ago today, last Saturday, just a few hours after we went off the air is when the whole melee that occurred in Butler, Pennsylvania with the shooting of Donald Trump. And you go through everything. He was explaining last night, and you were on the floor last night, right?
That's right.
Yeah, when he made that explanation that, as he turned to look at that chart, and if he had not turned quite as much, that same bullet at that same angle would have actually gone into his head as opposed to zipping off the top of his ear. I don't know about you. I heard kind of a different Donald Trump last night.
Mm-hmm. All week I had been hearing from sources who spoke with him that weekend that there was a sort of paradoxical occurrence where the guy got shot, he was almost murdered, he survived, and yet it's even less about him. One of my sources said that this was the best sort of different Donald Trump possible.
Yeah.
And I was skeptical because we've seen numerous times during the Trump administration where he would deliver a heartwarming speech or a unifying speech only to sort of return to what made him famous in politics, which is, sort of shooting from the hip, if you will.
Yeah.
And what we saw from President Trump during his acceptance speech is he was solemn. He was different. Yes, he returned to the greatest hits later in the afternoon. But as one commentator said, it was the acoustic version. And it was remarkable to see in person.
Yeah, I'm not coming at you with the whole band. It's just kind of me and the guitar, and we're just playing it from here. Yeah, it was a much more low key. Although the message was the same, the delivery was markedly different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not only did the president, speak more softly than he usually does, the amount of times that he went off script was reduced. And, what I found remarkable is that he was trying to almost critique the Biden administration without using President Biden's name.
Yeah.
I went through my notes last night, and I think that he said President Biden's name exactly once.
Yep, and caught himself.
Yeah, and said, and that's the last time I'll do that. But, Trump is he loves a good story. And last night he had a great story to tell, which is one of resilience and one of literal survival, where he dodged an assassin's bullet. And he had that audience eating out of his hand.
Yeah, no, and he really did. And I was deeply moved by the fact, first of all, when his granddaughter did one of the introductory statements about him, the night before, and talking about them playing golf together and all that, and things where you could tell within the family there is a high level of love. It's not just business. Some people think that everything within the Trump family, everything within the Trump family is just business. I think she painted a picture where that's not really the case. And then to watch the family, as he was up on the platform speaking last night, there was, for me, it was a mix of great thankfulness that he was alive and also a high level of adoration of him. Now, that's what I got through the television set. I don't know if that's what you felt on the floor.
I think that's not only a good assessment of the way that family treats the former president, but also the way that his base treats him. One of the things that was significant that we heard from Trump the other day is he was talking about the reaction of the crowd in Pennsylvania. And he was complimenting the folks at that rally who, immediately after the shooting, they didn't scatter, they didn't run, they didn't stampede. Instead, he complimented them for, rallying together and staying calm.
And that really is kind of amazing, because he's right. In a crowd like that, it's normally grab your kids and run, and there was really none of that.
Yeah. And, it was almost as if sort of the folks that were in Pennsylvania and then the folks that were there on the floor of the RNC convention were sort of a similar kind of organism, a similar kind of unit. They were reacting to things, as one almost.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. Let's go back a little bit into the convention itself. Give me your take. What's your general feel on the picking of Senator Vance as the running mate? Only 2 years in, his first term as a senator, so not a long political history, but yet very successful in life, after graduating college and all of that. And I think not to the same level of success, but almost cut from the same cloth as Donald Trump. As I came up with not a whole lot. People say, "What do you mean not a whole lot?" His dad gave him $100 million or whatever. Yeah, but what he did with it is kind of extraordinary. But I think that with J.D. Vance, I see the ability, I think, for them to be good with each other. I think Trump, unlike he did with Mike Pence, and I think if you were to get Trump in a room alone and you never repeated it, he would let you know that he had some misgivings about the way he handled Pence, not just at the end, but all the way through their administration. But do you think that J.D. Vance is, in fact, a good counter to Donald Trump?
We'll see. We'll see how they work together on the campaign trail. One of the things that struck me as significant is that where a Senator Marco Rubio might have helped Trump with the Latino community, or Senator Tim Scott could have potentially helped with the black community, J.D. Vance appeals first and foremost to Trump's supporters already. It wasn't that he was necessarily bringing something new to the table in terms of a core constituency. So I think that reflected some confidence from the former president after what occurred in Pennsylvania. I think that in Vance, he sees someone who is sort of cut from the same ideological mold.
Right.
And so,
it's a good way to put that.
It wasn't just that he was choosing a vice presidential candidate. It was also that he was choosing sort of an heir apparent, someone who could, take on the sort of MAGA mantle and run with it. Because one of the things that makes Vance unique is he's a populist who's unafraid of big government in a similar way as Trump. And
that's right. That's right.
He would be well positioned to run for the White House himself in 2028.
Well, and a couple takes that I got, not original to me, but from 2 or 3 others that I had listened to, one on the broadcast air and 2 more out of print, and that is that J.D. Vance, by where he's at in Ohio, and that people are very familiar with him there, is that he might, in fact, be a big help in Pennsylvania and a big help in Michigan. Your take on that?
That's something that the Trump campaign is hoping. They're going to leave Milwaukee. J.D. Vance is going to parachute into the upper Midwest. He's going to be focusing on Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, and also Minnesota. They think that they actually have a chance of competing there. We'll see if that's accurate or not, or it's just optimism. But when I was speaking with Trump's pollster, a guy named John McLaughlin, the point that he made was that Vance appeals to the core constituency of the Trump movement, to the white working class voter. And so you're going to have a Rust Belt guy going to the Rust Belt and, almost making that argument for Trump when he's unavailable, when he's somewhere else in the country. And, it'll be interesting to see if he can actually break through that Democratic blue wall. Because what we're seeing right now is, Trump leads by about 3 points in the Real Clear Politics average, and then he's ahead in each of the battleground states, or he's about tied. So the guy is in a very comfortable position currently.
We're talking to Philip Wegman from Real Clear Politics. He's their White House correspondent. We have him on almost every Saturday, and very glad to have him on again today. Let me make a reference here to your most recent article at Real Clear Politics. And if you want, folks, you can go to realclearpolitics.com and then go into the authors, and you can find Wegman, and boom, it comes up. Your most recent article that you put in, Republican Dreams and Democratic Nightmares Leaving Milwaukee. One thing you make reference to is something that I'd also heard, that some of the people who would normally be right there in the pocket with Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Barack Obama, normally they would be right in there with him and saying, okay, here we go. Well, starting with George Clooney and some of the comments that he made after he had ducked out of the fundraiser that he had held for Biden, and then for all of these people now to be lining up and basically saying, Mr. President, thank you for a good job, but it's probably time that you go. This is writing on the wall for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting. If you go back to the first couple of years of the Biden administration, Democrats were really hoping that they were going to get a chance to run against Donald Trump in 2024. Mm-hmm. They blitzed his primary opponents going after Ron DeSantis. They were ready to run the same playbook. I even had, close friends of the president saying that they were praying that Donald Trump would run and win again because they thought they could steamroll the guy. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and now it's totally opposite. You have Republicans hoping that they can run against Joe Biden. What I heard from Senator Marco Rubio, from the Trump campaign, from a number of folks here, was that they don't want to see Biden replaced. They think that they have the best odds of retaking the White House if they run against the ticket as it stands currently. And they think that running against Vice President Harris would be a more difficult lift. But we're in this moment of pretty significant change. I think that if you look at the Atlanta debate, that's what broke open a lot of things, a lot of questions for President Biden. If you look at the the shooting in Pennsylvania, that opened up a new sort of Donald Trump. Things are moving and changing very quickly, and it's going to be an exciting next couple of weeks.
The next presidential debate is supposed to be in September. If you're a betting man, and I know you're not because you're a fine Christian man, and if your mom ever found out that you were betting, you'd have to come home for a while. But if you were a betting man, does that debate in September not take place with Trump and Biden? Is the Biden issue already done by then? Whether or not he leaves office, which I don't think he will, I don't want him to do that. But whether or not he is not going to be on the ticket, will they have somebody else by then? Because their convention is coming up next month, right?
Mm-hmm. It's an excellent excellent question, and I have no idea. I just don't know, Pat, because that debate is supposed to be in September. It's after the Democratic convention. President Biden insists again and again that he's not going there, and yet we have an increasingly large cast of characters, like you mentioned, from former President Obama to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, sort of suggesting to him that he should be open to the possibility of stepping aside. And this has given Republicans an opportunity to, really have some fun with this. I mean, we saw them repurpose Democratic arguments and say, all right, well, if Democrats are going to choose a nominee in a smoke-filled back room, well, that's not very democratic. That's a threat to democracy. And more than that, you had the Trump campaign, which said that they were not going to accept the terms of a vice presidential debate because they didn't believe that would be fair, because Vice President Harris, in their minds, has a good shot at becoming their presidential nominee.
Yeah. I saw in the general election on Real Clear Politics on the polls, and if you guys want to find out what's really going on in real polling, go to Real Clear Politics. And I see right now they're giving Trump overall a 5-point lead all across the board, which is awesome, but that's not exactly how it's won. You got to be looking and say, okay, but how is he doing in Michigan? How's he doing in Pennsylvania? How's he doing in Arizona? And from all I'm seeing, he's doing well there too.
Mm-hmm. And the question is whether or not he can continue to add support. He's certainly unified the Republican Party. One of the big jobs was getting Nikki Haley's more moderate Republicans to sign on. We saw Haley at the convention. She finally offered her endorsement. If he can keep this going, then he can not only, build that base, but perhaps target some of these other voters. Right now, though, it seems that they're really going to be, focused on their core constituencies, and that Trump's going to go to the dance with the voters who brought him.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, time is gone, as always. And, Philip, you know this. I appreciate you more than you can know, making sure that you carve out a part for our program every week. It means a great deal to me. And I'll look forward to talking to you again next Saturday. Let's hope that this coming week is not as eventful as the last week has been. It's like Amen. I was almost afraid to turn the TV on.
Yep. Amen.
Yep. All right, my friend. Well, listen, thank you so very, very much. And I appreciate you giving us a little bit of a leadway. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the picture that you sent me when I asked how you were doing, and you had this gleeful look in your selfie that you did with everything, with the convention behind you. I may make that my program page for a while. Just
Thanks, Pat.
Hey, listen, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
This is the Pat Miller Program on WOWO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM. Depend on it.
Hey, my thanks to everybody who's been part of the program so far in this first hour of the Pat Miller Program on this Saturday. Kayla Blakesley was with us. We talked a lot about what's happened with some moving around of the chess pieces at the Fort Wayne Police Department. She's not done digging into that, and she's not done updating all of us on that. You can also catch her every morning on Fort Wayne's Morning News right here on WOWO, and that runs from 5 to 9, so make sure you check in with that. Do what I do. I've got my alarm clock set on WOWO so that when I wake up, I've got Kayla's voice playing in my right ear. I wake up, she catches me on everything going on. If there's traffic problems, I know right away. If there are political things that have occurred overnight, she lets me know. All of that happens every morning on WOWO. Back with more after the top of the hour. We're going to have the 122nd represented here, our good friend Chief Master Sergeant Kyle Hoopengarter. What's going on out there at the airfield? And we'll talk to him straight ahead on WOWO.
Podcasts by Federated Media.